Last night, the council filed an SDT with regards to raw data of an MMPI-2 that Dr. Torres may be in possession of. It's my understanding that we already dealt with that issue as far as discovery goes. It was real clear, at least my recollection is, that the court said that information could be transferred to experts for evaluation. And so at this time, we're asking that SDT be quashed. I haven't had a chance to talk to Dr. Torres about this, but I'm assuming the state hospital's position has not changed, that they're not going to want to disseminate the raw data from psychological testing.
As you know, let me see, but I don't think I can get it yet.
I follow the history, and I can
Yeah.
what exactly.
Okay, tell me what's going on.
So, Your Honor, I had requested and Dr. Gray provided, as you remember before, the literature that they were basing some of their diagnoses on, and specifically, they had one article, and I can file this over, we can supplement it to the court. They provided one article specifically dealing with the MMP2 and that certain scores on that. And the article says which ones that you're looking at are some generally dissociative identity disorder is hard to score on the MMP2. This article that was relied upon evidently by Dr. Gray, and he said primarily in this, has certain scores though on it that are higher for people that they believe are malingering. And so all I'm asking, I'm not asking for all of the raw data. I'm asking strictly for the raw data on the MMP2.
Prosecution?
We just would bring Jessica Bethel back to the stand, Judge.
Ms. Bethel, if you would resume your seat in the witness stand, I remind you, ma'am, that you're still under oath.
Good morning, Ms. Bethel. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm well, thank you.
Good. You told us on Wednesday when you were here how many homicide investigations you were involved with. Can you remind us again how many that is?
Over 100.
Is it fairly common in your experience that when people are at the sheriff's office on a murder investigation and detained that they can get very nervous?
Yes.
Is that what was apparent with the defendant there at the end of that video?
Yes.
Overruled, I think she can offer an opinion regarding her experience based on other the responses of other people that she's been in contact with.
So go ahead and answer that.
Yes.
Early in the, I guess I shouldn't say early in the interview, but at some point in the interview, it appeared that the defendant was trying to leave the interview room, and then a separate person comes in and has her phone. Do you remember that portion?
Yes.
Who was that other person, first of all?
That was Lieutenant Mitchell Mahalko.
Is he with the sheriff's office also?
Yes, he is.
Was it very apparent by her actions at that particular time that she wanted to leave and wanted to take her phone with her?
Yes.
When she showed up at the sheriff's office, do you know how she got there that day?
She drove herself in her Tiguan.
And is that when we had testimony from another detective? Is that when it was observed that it appears to have just been recently washed prior to driving down to the sheriff's office?
Yes, that's correct.
We see the medical folks come in, the ambulance folks. Where did they take the defendant after leaving the video there?
They took her to Memorial Hospital on Boulder.
Is this, and we've already had testimony from forensic nurse examiner Amanda Van Nest, is that interaction with the FNE, the nurse, does that occur as soon as she gets to the hospital when she leaves the sheriff's office here?
That interaction did not occur immediately when she got to the hospital, no.
I mean, the same day.
Yes.
That's what I mean. I shouldn't have said the word immediately. But she goes from the sheriff's office by ambulance directly to the hospital, and then at the hospital is where she interacts.
Sustained. Rephrase.
Sure. Does she leave directly from the sheriff's office in an ambulance?
Yes, she did.
Did the ambulance drive her directly to Memorial Hospital?
Yes.
At Memorial Hospital, is that when she had contact, she being the defendant, had contact with forensic nurse examiner Amanda Van Nest?
Yes, that's correct.
At that hospital, after being there for some period of time, did the defendant walk away from the hospital before completing a sane exam?
Yes, she did.
So did this purported anxiety attack achieve her goal of wanting to leave the sheriff's office?
Ultimately, yes.
Would committing a murder and being detained in the sheriff's office cause somebody to have nervousness and potentially have a panic attack?
Sustained.
So I want to jump ahead in time. After the defendant left the hospital on January 29th, were you aware of where she was?
Throughout the investigation, I was aware at certain times, yes.
Okay. Were you aware of when she actually moved things out of her house on 6627 Mandan Drive?
Yes,
What day was that?
the 31st of January.
So 2 days after your interaction with her at the sheriff's office.
Yes.
In between those two events, did you have any other personal contact with her face to face?
I did not.
Did you attempt to have any personal contact with her face to face?
I did not.
Once that occurred at the house on January 31st, where she moved things out, are you aware that she had a TV interview with Spencer Wilson from KKTV?
Yes, I observed that.
In that interview, and we've had testimony from Spencer Wilson earlier, she complained that in her interaction at the sheriff's office, she was not allowed to eat or drink or take bathroom breaks. Was she allowed to do those things at the sheriff's office?
Yes, she was offered those things.
In that interview that we just watched over the later in the day on Wednesday and then this morning, at some point the defendant made a reference to you about, well, you've been in my house, you know what it's like there. When did you actually ever go to the house?
I went to the house, I believe it was in February.
February 21st, sound right?
That does sound correct.
Is it typical that the lead detective potentially wouldn't have to go to scene like that, at least early on?
Yes, they would go typically early on.
What about the idea that at the beginning, it's reported as a runway and you don't know necessarily that where a scene might be that you need to look at? Does that play into the fact that you don't go as early?
Yes.
This is leading.
No, it does not suggest the answer. Overruled.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Do you remember getting text messages from the defendant into February of 2020?
I know there were several times that she sent me text messages. I can't recall all of the dates specifically.
Sure. But were you getting text messages from her after she left the house on January 31st?
Yes.
Did you become aware of the defendant attempting to get her passport and bag back from evidence?
Yes.
Do you remember when that occurred?
I believe that was also on the 31st.
Okay. Did you get a text message specifically about those things, needing to get her passport and bag back?
I do recall asking about a passport.
Do you remember when that was?
I don't recall the date, no.
If I showed you your report, would that refresh your memory?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach the witness with her report, which is pagination 010980.
You may go ahead.
Take a look at this report and when you're done. Do you remember that text message?
Yes, I do.
What was, first of all, let me ask you this. Was there anything odd about that text message? Was it coming from, strike that. Was it coming from a phone number that you recognized?
No, it was not.
Did you, based on context, were you able to determine who it was coming from?
Yes.
What was that context that gave you that information?
The person texting said that they did not do anything to Gannon and that there was no negligence on their part.
Okay. And so that led you to believe that it was coming from who?
Letecia.
I'm going to retrieve that report from you. At some point, was a decision made to travel to South Carolina?
Yes.
When was that made?
Early March.
Why was that decision made?
Letecia had fled to South Carolina, and by that time I had obtained probable cause and authored an arrest warrant for her, which was signed off by a judge at the El Paso County Courthouse. And so we went to Myrtle Beach to arrest her.
When you say we, can you tell us who all was involved in that process?
It was members from the local FBI, Detective Mark Riley and myself, and also local law enforcement and members of the FBI in Myrtle Beach.
Was that arrest actually affected in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina?
Yes.
Was the defendant interviewed in South Carolina?
Yes, she was.
You remember by who?
Gruesome.
Who is John Grusing and who is he with?
He is with the FBI.
Okay. And we're going to hear from him at a later time, so I'm not going to get into her interview with you. Was there some discussion had as to how the defendant would get from South Carolina back to Colorado?
Yes.
What was the ultimate decision made as to that transportation?
That she would be driven back to Colorado in a rental van.
Who was involved in driving her back?
Myself and Detective Riley, and later on Deputy Michaela James.
So did you actually stop somewhere in the middle of that drive from South Carolina to Colorado to pick up the other deputy that you just mentioned?
Yes, we did.
How long did that drive last?
More than 24 hours.
Were you with the defendant the entire time?
Yes.
What was her demeanor like during that transportation?
She was calm. She ate. She sang songs. She played trivia.
Was she able to have conversations?
Yes.
Conversations that were not related to the investigation?
Yes.
Were they appropriate conversations, meaning if she's saying things, did they make sense?
Yes.
Was she able to eat and drink?
Yes.
Was she able to use the restroom?
Yes, she was.
And you mentioned trivia and singing songs. Was that something that all of you were sort of doing in the vehicle?
Yes, just to pass the time.
And was she participating in that in an appropriate way, meaning nothing seemed out of the ordinary?
That's correct, yes.
The entirety of that transport from South Carolina to Colorado, was that audio and video recorded?
Yes.
Thankfully, we're not going to play all of those hours of video, okay?
Correct.
But why was that audio and video recorded?
I was concerned with her previous behavior that she may do something. And so I wanted to have documentation of the transport.
Okay. So I want to bring up to you People's Exhibit 338. Please take a look at that. And let me know if you recognize it.
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it, first off?
My initials and date are on it, and it is a GoPro video of the extradition.
It's a, can you say that it's a what video?
GoPro?
Oh,
Is it only a portion of that hours-long transportation from South Carolina to Colorado?
Yes, just a very small portion.
Have you had a chance to review that thumb drive containing that GoPro video?
Yes, I have.
Is it fair and accurate representation as to the contents in that portion of the transportation?
It is.
And does that thumb drive actually contain two different clips? So two different files on the thumb drive?
It does, yes.
Is it a fair and accurate representation of that transportation portion?
Yes.
At this time, I'd move for admission of People's 338.
Mr. Cook,
Your Honor, Mr. Allen and I speak very quickly.
all right. All right, Exhibit 338 will be admitted. Go ahead.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
You may, go ahead.
Well, actually, before I get into publishing that. So what are we about to see in People's Exhibit 338, just to give some context?
The first clip is a view of Letecia along with Deputy James in the back seat of the van. They're sitting in captain's seats. And during that portion of the video, you can see Letecia moving around slightly, and that's because her hands are handcuffed to a belly band around her waist, and she is manipulating her hands out of the handcuffs, and she obtains a Monster Energy can, and she strikes Deputy James in the face with that full unopened can of Monster Energy drink, and then struggles with Deputy James. I myself have noted several pre-contact cues where she is glancing at Deputy James' waist area where her gun was kept. And then ultimately, whenever I come back to assist Deputy James once the vehicle is stopped, she also glances at my waist where my gun is kept. I took that to be a threat that she was attempting to obtain one of our weapons.
So let's have some context. Where did this occur in that travel from South Carolina to Colorado?
This is in Kansas on Interstate 70,
What approximate speed were you all traveling when this occurred?
about 75 miles an hour.
What was the reaction to this action by the defendant to who was driving?
Deputy Riley was.
What was his reaction to that happening in the backseat of the van?
We immediately start giving commands to Letecia to stop. And as we're doing that, Deputy Riley pulled over to the shoulder of the interstate. Thankfully, there was an area clear for us to pull over, and he slammed on the brakes, which put her into the back seat of my seat.
Was that a highly dangerous situation that was unfolding?
Absolutely, yes.
What made it highly dangerous?
Ms. Stauch was already suspected of murder, and she assaulted a deputy who was armed and attempted to obtain her firearm.
What about the fact that you're on the highway and that action or reaction by Detective Riley had to occur? Did that also enhance the dangerousness of it?
Yes, he wasn't able to exit the vehicle to immediately help us because of traffic that was traveling so quickly next to us.
All right, let's go ahead and play that.
And I believe it's 21 minutes. Would you like me to stay up for this?
Is it
I'm
20?
fine with, yeah, it's roughly that.
Okay, you can go ahead and step down.
Thank you.
threatening me. Stop. She keeps threatening me.
Stop it.
She keeps on threatening me. I have stopped it. She keeps on.
She got out of the streets.
She keeps on. Threatening me. I will for you. She keeps
Put your arm down.
Put your arm down. But she keeps threatening me the whole time.
Tisha, give me your arm.
I will to you.
Tisha,
not her.
Tisha, give me your
I will
arm.
to you, but not to her.
Cooperate with me. Cooperate with me.
I will with you, but not with her.
Cooperate with me.
I will with you, not with her.
Tisha?
I will with you. I said I would with you. Give me your arm now. I said I would with you. I said I would with you. And I wouldn't do this.
Stop resisting.
I'm not resisting. I said I would with her. What if I'm not touching you?
Go ahead. I got her on.
I have the song.
Tisha, stop
I'm not resisting.
resisting. Yes, you are. Stop it. Put it behind her back.
Yep.
Tisha, stop it.
I'm not even doing anything.
You just got another charge.
Well, she shouldn't be doing me like this.
Stand up. Stop trying to turn.
I'm not trying to turn.
You can stay that way the rest of the trip.
Here's what we want to do. We're going to the nearest detention facility.
Oh,
Then everybody knows where.
oh, could you please untighten it from my hands?
Not right now, Tisha.
Yes, it's all my arms.
Lean forward. Lean forward so I can adjust it. Stop
I'm
manipulating the thought.
eating you.
You good? You make a call yet?
No, I don't know where we're at.
Okay, hang on. Lock the doors. I got her locked.
Can you turn the air on?
Is it my t-shirt?
Well, I asked for help for the air, and she's been nothing but mean to me the whole day. I can't breathe.
Stop.
I can't breathe.
What?
Just open it so I can breathe. That's all I'm asking for is to breathe. I'm just asking to breathe. That's it. Is to breathe. That's all I want to do is breathe.
2600 Avenue. We're right by Pretty Horses. On 70.
I'm not resisting her. You're hurting my arm.
My phone is jacking up cold.
You're hurting my arm. You're hurting my arm.
Tisha,
I just
stop.
want my arm. It's hurting my arm. Just let my arm go. It's hurting my arm.
The more you press against me, the harder I'm gonna press on the.
I understand. It's not the pressure point. It's my arm. It's bent backwards and it's hurting. Can you just take
Yes,
pressure
ma'am.
off
This
my
is
arm?
Detective Bethel with the El Paso County Sheriff's
Please,
Office.
off my
Need a
arm.
marked unit
I am.
to the 2600 block of
It's pulling my,
Interstate 70.
pulling my wrist, please.
I have Letecia
Yes.
Stauch in custody. She's just attempted to escape and she's trying resisted.
I didn't try to
Hold on.
escape.
You just tried.
No, I didn't open the door to breathe.
Yes, ma'am. I'm on I-70 westbound in the 2600
When you
block.
were calm, we were not doing anything, correct?
Can you please,
But as
with
we-
my wrist.
Let me speak first, okay?
Okay.
As soon as you try to open that
Do you
door.
remember the last mile marker we hit?
The door so I could breathe. It's hot. I asked you to help me, but you just lean over and don't help. I said, hey, could you please find out how to turn the air on? Hey, the whole time you've been nothing but rude to me.
Letecia.
I'm just putting my arm down because it's hurting. I didn't try to escape or anything. I legit opened the door to breathe.
Detective Jessica Bethel with the El Paso County Sheriff's Office. Extradition and Letecia Stauch.
Ow, my arm is hurting.
I am in a gray Chrysler minivan bearing Michigan plates. We have the hazards on and we're on the shoulder of the road.
Tell them to pick it up.
And we need a code 3 response, please.
You said you would help my arm. I pressure.
Nope. She's assaulted.
Oh, it's hurting.
Boy Edward Tom Henry Edward
It's
Michigan.
hurting my arm. It's hurting.
8/4 of 83 is her birthday.
I did not try to escape.
No, ma'am, I
I
have
did
two other
not. Tell us
deputies
the
with me.
story.
SRT.
Could not breathe. I asked you to open the door.
Yep. We've got her under
Yes, ma'am.
control right now. We've got Kansas coming out here now. Well, we're gonna get some
Yes, ma'am.
other equipment to at least secure her, or
No,
at
ma'am.
least have them, somebody take us or escort us to the border and then have one of our people come to the border.
We're hurting my arm,
Okay.
please.
Yeah, everybody's fine. You're good. Hit her. With a fist, she got out of her cuffs.
She slipped her cuffs and
She
hit
slipped them.
a deputy and tried to escape.
I did not try to escape.
So that's what our plan is. So if you can, I don't know how far we are from.
Nope,
but
we're all
As
okay.
soon as we get an escort to the.
We just need a secure unit to transport further.
Yep. We're gonna have, is that for state patrol? We'll have them escort us to the Colorado
Are
border.
you having a state patrol?
Well, my arm is hurting.
Or who's dispatching out, ma'am?
Before you move, you have to tell me where you're trying to go, okay?
Okay.
No, I just want to get off my arm. It's hurting.
Okay.
I understand, but if I feel like you're
Right.
trying to pull against me, one of those two, you're
Okay.
trying to.
If I could get a state patrol officer en route as well to help me escort to the Colorado border.
Lift my head off.
We look like we're good, at least we're trying to understand, and we'll see what we can do.
Yes, ma'am. I'm gonna put my partner, Detective Riley, on the phone with you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you.
We're at 284.
Okay.
Nice. Let's see.
Yes.
You okay?
Can you please lift up my wrist?
No, not up for that.
After what?
Once you're.
Yes, ma'am. We're doing an expedition.
I didn't try to
Leticia
escape.
Stauch.
I opened the door to breathe.
Back
You
to
know that.
Colorado. She
Yes, I
slipped her
did.
cuffs and
You know-
assaulted a deputy. We have her under control right now. But we would appreciate.
I just feel like it's breaking my wrist.
And then we'll have our state patrol meetings. If that's possible.
Relax,
I
or
can't.
the pressure will get
But
worse.
if it gets worse, then guess what? I have to go to a hospital because she hurts me.
What's your number, Jess?
On that, 650-719. Should just be able to look it up.
That's correct. We're at the 284.
284 westbound.
My wrist is hurting. My wrist is hurting.
Relax.
I can't. My wrist is breaking.
Your wrist is not.
It is
breaking.
hurting.
The more you wiggle, the more it's gonna hurt.
Thank you.
Relax.
I'm trying, but it's hurting. Like the things are hurting my
Stop
wrist.
moving.
No, that's fine. We'll wait here for officers.
You're pushing down on
Thank
it
you,
more.
ma'am.
We've got some
Bye-bye.
right now.
They're coming right now.
Got 6 en route.
Stop trying
I'm
to,
not trying to resist.
then stop turning.
To you. You're holding me for
Okay,
nothing.
stop trying to turn against
I'm
my
not
fence.
going to turn against you. You're holding me.
Go ahead and unbuckle her. We're gonna make sure she's not gonna get out of her restraints this time. I'm gonna see if they have a belly belt, a real one.
I'm hurting my wrist.
This isn't gonna happen again.
Hurting my wrist. I'm not doing anything. She's doing that. I'm not doing anything.
Stop turning against.
I'm not turning against you. You're doing that to me on purpose. See? Look what she's doing on purpose. Look.
Stop turning.
I'm not turning.
Stop moving.
I'm not moving.
Relax your body.
My body's relaxed.
Stop.
I'm not doing anything to you. You're trying to choke me now.
Turn your head.
Okay, you wanna bring her out?
Out of her cuffs right now.
No, we got her back
Got her
in,
back in.
but
The vehicle.
they're slapped on. I mean, they're not good.
We'll bring her out. We'll lock, double
Yeah.
lock them.
Pull them out.
Bring her out.
Step out, Keisha.
Oh, she choked me now. It hurts.
Yeah, read to her. You're not gonna get too far. You're gonna get a dog. You understand?
I'm not doing anything. I didn't try to.
You better run faster than.
Well, I didn't try to run away. I opened the door so I could breathe.
You guys have where you going? Colorado? Oh, Lord, you got a west. Yeah.
And we have a what?
You have a better belly belt than this? It's because you're better.
I don't have a friend.
I don't.
Here, let's do this. Let's go out here in the ditch. Let's get her down on her knee. That's whatever you need to do. No, they have 3 of them transport one person. Yes, they did. They were all, he was outside too, women getting inside the firm, they got them.
If we could just have Ms. Bethel come back to the stand, or do you want to take a break?
I was gonna request you take a break now.
that's
Is this a good breaking
Yeah.
point? Okay.
Her, an opinion as to her sanity during the time that you were with her and during the course of this investigation.
All right, overruled.
Were you able to develop an opinion as to her sanity?
Yes,
And what is that opinion?
I believe she is sane and she is manipulative and very calculated.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Cross-examination, Mr. Cook?
Thank you. Miss Bethel, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Will Cook. I represent Miss Stauch. I know you're familiar with. So your first contact with her was with Gannon's father, and it was at a Starbucks in Fountain?
That's correct.
Okay. And we listened to that recording?
Yes.
Okay. And you testified that she seemed to be apprehensive
That
during
was
that interview?
that was during the phone call
Okay.
leading up to the ultimate in-person meeting with her and Albert. Yes.
Okay. And why do you say apprehensive in the phone call?
When I contacted Letecia, I explained who I was and that I was assigned to the Investigations Division. And Letecia said, I have already spoken with 8 other people. And I asked her if I could meet her at the home. And she did not want me present in her home, stating that there were several young children in the home and she did not want them to overhear our conversation. And that later turned out to not be correct.
Okay. Now in the video interview at the sheriff's headquarters downtown, was that the office just right across the street from the courthouse?
Yes, sir, it is.
And it seems at times that she's very cooperative. Like she won't talk, stop talking. She just keeps going on and on and on, and she seems very personable. Is that your recollection of what was going on in the video?
In terms of her willingness to have a conversation, yes, she was willing to have a conversation.
Okay. So she didn't seem apprehensive at that point, as far as talking and meeting with investigators.
I wouldn't say that to be completely correct.
Okay. So in this, at least the first couple of hours, you say that she was still apprehensive?
In certain areas, yes.
Okay. Did during this interview at Starbucks or at the interview room at the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, did she ever try to physically assault you or any of the other deputies?
No, she did not.
Okay. And in one of the interviews at Starbucks, speaking with Gannon's father, do you remember when he said that they had put Gannon into counseling because of custody issues?
Yes.
Okay. Did Gannon's father ever mention that Gannon was put into custody or put into counseling because of issues between Letecia and Gannon?
No.
How long would you say you were in the car or the van total with Miss Stauch from South Carolina back to El Paso County?
Oh, we'd never made it back to El Paso County.
Well, yeah, but to where it stopped, I'm sorry.
Over 24 hours.
24
I would
hours.
say close to 24 hours at least.
Now, did y'all stop in a hotel at one point, or were y'all just switching off drivers and doing it straight?
We were just switching off drivers.
Okay. Was this some sort of police van? Was it marked, or was it just a white cargo van that you rented somewhere?
It wasn't a cargo van. It was a commercial. It was a passenger van that the sheriff's office had rented for us.
Okay. What was Ms. Stauch's demeanor during, other than the video that we were watching, what was her demeanor for the other 23 and a half hours or 24 hours you were in the van with her?
She was calm.
calm? And you said y'all were doing trivia, singing, that sort of thing?
Yes.
Okay. Where was everybody seated in the van when she slipped the cuff or slipped the cuffs and threw the drink at the other deputy? Who was driving?
Detective Riley was driving.
Okay, your front passenger seat?
That's correct.
Okay, where was the other deputies?
Deputy Michaela James was seated next to her behind Detective Riley.
Okay, and was Miss Stauch seated directly behind you?
Yes, she was.
Okay. Did you nap during this ride any? Fall asleep? Or were you awake and aware the whole time?
No, I wasn't able to sleep.
Okay. Now, you said that Ms. Stauch and your encounters with her seemed calm and collected.
I said she seemed calm, yes.
Okay. And that she seemed like she wasn't switching between personalities.
No.
Okay. So there was no switch in her personality from when she was calm for 24 hours in the van till she slipped her cuffs and assaulted a deputy? Was there no change in her behavior at that point, in your opinion?
There was a change in her behavior, but I don't believe a change in her personality.
Okay. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Ms. Bethel, do you know what this is?
It's a diagnostic and statistical manual of mental disorders.
Okay. And you see right there, it says DSM-5,
Yes,
numeral 5. Do you know what this book is?
it's a mental disorder book, I assume?
Okay. Have you ever seen it before or ever read it?
No.
Okay. Did you know in the field of psychiatry that this is more or less the Bible for diagnosing psychiatric disorders?
No.
Okay. And did you know that borderline personality disorders is listed in this DSM-5 manual?
Objection. She's already said that she's not familiar with the book.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand where you're going. She's not being.
Your Honor, can we
qualified.
approach?
The objection sustained. You can rephrase.
So, Ms. Bethel, your definition of sanity that you told Mr. Allen that you believe Ms. Stauch was with your dealings with her, it is not based on the definition of sanity as contained in the DSM-5.
Judge, I would just further object. There's no definition of sanity in that.
Well, you can examine somebody about that to your heart's content, but the question is a fair one, overruled.
And let me rephrase. When you told Mr. Allen that Ms. Stauch was sane, you're not basing that opinion on anything found in this book, the DSM-5, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Just a moment, Your Honor.
All right.
That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Redirect.
Thank you, Your Honor. How long have you been in law enforcement prior to you leaving the sheriff's office?
14 years.
During your time with the sheriff's office, what were your different duties?
I began my career as a civilian and I worked with inmates incarcerated at the El Paso County Criminal Justice Center. From there, I became a deputy in 2010. and received my post-training to become a peace officer. And then from there, I worked on patrol and ultimately into investigations.
In your experience of working at detentions at the jail, would you have contact with people that are suffering from mental health disorders?
Yes,
Would it happen fairly often?
yes,
During your time with the sheriff's office, did you also have contact with lots of people in the public?
yes,
Did you see people in the public that had mental health disorders?
yes, I did.
During your time as a working at the sheriff's office, did you encounter people that had severe mental health disorders?
Yes,
Did you have contact with people that had that you might have had concerns with that they may be a threat to themselves or others, their safety?
yes,
Did this defendant ever get anywhere close to that during your interactions with her?
no.
Thank you.
The jurors have any questions for Ms. Bethel? All right, looks like we have at least one. All right, prosecution, call your next witness, please.
Christian Liewer.
I'm sorry, who was the witness?
Christian Liewer.
Liewer.
All right,
L-I-E.
you would step forward, raise your right hand, please, sir. You swear affirm the testimony about to give in this man will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Go ahead and have a seat in the witness stand. Please watch your step as you step into the stand. See too many people bring a camera up with them. Okay.
I'll explain.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, everyone.
Would you state your name for the record and also spell your last name?
My name is Christian, and my last name is spelled Liewer, and it's pronounced Liewer.
And where are you employed?
I'm a crime scene investigator with the Colorado Springs Metro Crime Lab.
And how long have you been employed with the Metro Crime Lab?
I've been employed with the Metro Crime Lab for a little under 4 years now.
And in terms of your role with the Metro Crime Lab, generally, what do you do?
As a crime scene investigator, we respond to scenes, vehicle processings, autopsies, and person processings for general documentation and evidence collection purposes.
Can you tell the jury a bit more about what type of educational background you need to perform that particular role?
I have a bachelor's of science in criminal justice with an emphasis in forensic investigation, and I also have a master's degree in forensic science from the University of Florida.
In terms of certifications that you hold, can you explain the jury some of those?
Current national certifications, but through our crime lab training program, we have to go through a 6-month training program where we are reviewed and observed by a certified crime scene investigator until we are deemed competent enough to perform crime scene investigations independently.
What about continuing education or things that you do on an annual basis to ensure that you're up to date with the current technology and science? What do you do?
We go to many trainings within our scope of work. That includes blood stain pattern analysis, shooting incident reconstruction, latent print processing, and whatnot.
And how many scenes have you responded to over the course of your career thus far?
I've responded to approximately 75 crime scenes and a total of approximately 220 total callouts.
And the 75 crime scenes, was that specifically as your role as a crime scene investigator?
That is correct, yes.
And how many times have you testified in an expert capacity?
A little bit under 10 times now.
And specifically, what capacity was that?
Crime scene investigation.
Okay. And were all those in this jurisdiction?
Yes, they were.
Your Honor, at this time, the people who tendered the report, Christian Liewer as an expert in crime scene investigations.
Oh, good. Witness will be so qualified.
All right. Mr. Liewer, I'd like for you to explain to the jury your role as it relates to the disappearance of Gannon Stauch as you understood it from the get-go. How did your role start?
Absolutely. On February 3rd, I was informed that I was requested to respond to 6627 Mandan Drive to complete a search for latent blood stains and or projectile defects within the residence regarding a missing child.
And what was the specific address you were tasked with responding to?
6627 Mandan Drive.
And is that in the county of El Paso,
That is in the county of El Paso,
state of Colorado?
in the state of Colorado.
You mentioned that particular response. How many responses did you ultimately have to that residence?
I responded to that residence 3 times.
And can you break down for the jury each one of those responses, the dates and the times approximately?
Absolutely. As I alluded to before, I responded a little bit before lunchtime on February 3rd. I responded later in the evening around 6 p.m. also on February 3rd. And then I also responded on February 5th around a little bit after lunchtime.
And in terms of the Metro Crime Lab, how many people were you generally working with for your role in this case?
Each of my responses, I had an additional CSI that was in training with me. And then there were 2 other crime scene investigators that also responded on multiple days to the address.
So subsequent to your last time at the residence on February 5th, were there additional crime scene investigators that were present that helped process the scene or collect evidence?
Yes, there were.
Now, you mentioned that you were tasked, briefed with some additional information regarding looking for latent blood stains. Can you explain to the jury in very basic terms what you mean by blood and blood stains?
So blood, as you all know, is the red fluid that runs through your body that does contain genetic code and carries oxygen. When I refer to latent blood stains in a crime scene, I mean blood stains that are either very dilute or cleaned up to where you cannot see them anymore. So we have to use additional processing to make them visible.
And generally, what is contained in blood? Why is it important to you and what you do?
In a broad sense, what we're concerned about when it comes to blood is the genetic code or your DNA that we are trying to collect with blood stains.
And so in terms of your processing, is your role related to collecting, preserving blood or DNA for additional use by your team?
Yes, it is. Our role is to document and collect as much as we can.
Okay. Now you mentioned collecting, documenting. What is the specific tool that you may use when you're given information that a scene may involve blood?
There are multiple options that we have when it comes to looking at blood stains. However, when we are looking at latent blood stains, we will use a chemical called Blue Star that will assist us in visualizing the blood stains.
And generally, what is Blue Star?
Blue Star is a presumptive test for blood, meaning that it will react with blood, but it can react with multiple other substances. However, with Blue Star, when it reacts with the heme component of bloodstains, it will chemiluminesce or glow a bright blue color in the dark.
You said heme?
Correct. Heme.
What do you mean by that?
It's a molecule in the blood that specifically is targeted by Blue Star in our presumptive testing.
So while Blue Star can presumptively test positive for blood, can it presumptively test positive for other substances?
It can. Most of what it will react to is any oxidizing agent, which can include cleaning agents, bleach, even horseradish. So it's presumptive in the sense that we can search for blood, but there has to be additional testing to determine if it is blood and if there is any DNA present in that sample.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness?
You may.
Mr. Liewer, do you generally recognize what I'm holding here, which has been marked as People's Exhibit 442?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
This is a diagram that I created of the main level and the basement level of 6627 Mandan Drive.
And generally, are there various markings on this Exhibit 442?
Yes, there are. It has the address, it has what level of the scene it is, and then there are also additional blue, yellow, and purple dots within the diagram that I placed indicating positive blue star reactions on my multiple visits.
And is People's Exhibit 442 a fair and accurate representation of what you created with regard to floor plan?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, we would move to admit People's Exhibit 442.
No objection.
Exhibit 442 will be admitted. Go ahead.
Mr. Liewer, where there is a pointer. I'll ask you to use that as you walk through your testimony here. Your Honor, is this the right positioning that you prefer for this? It's very big.
It's fine. It's most important that the jury be able to see it. I think maybe if you cant it a little bit, turn it the other way.
Which way, Your Honor?
Like this. Other way.
Facing the
Sorry.
There you go. There you go.
We're good now?
Yep.
Please follow. Okay. Mr. Liewer, can you walk the jury through the diagram that appears in People's Exhibit 442, basic layout of the house?
Absolutely. Is it okay if I stand up next to the diagram as well?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
But if you're going to do that, you'll need to stand to one side or the other so that the jurors at the far end will still be able to see. So you just need to stand at one side or the other of the diagram.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Thank you. So as you can see on the top of the diagram, or the first section of this, that is going to be the main level of 6627 Mandan Drive. And when it relates to my crime scene processing, my first response was predominantly focused on in the upper right-hand corner over here. That is the garage. We were tasked with searching for latent bloodstains in the garage earlier that day. As you can see at the bottom left corner of the garage, there's a doorway. That will open into the laundry room, which the laundry room will continue to open into the main level of the home. Towards the center of this top half of the diagram, there is a stairwell. This stairwell leads to the basement, which the basement is highlighted on the bottom level or the bottom half of this diagram. Can you guys see the bottom half over there? Is it okay if I move the diagram slightly?
That's fine.
And Your Honor, if the jurors need to stand up or move around to see the diagram, would that be permissible
Yeah,
in
that's fine.
their chair?
Yeah, if you need to, especially the guys in the hole over there, that's.
And Mr. Liewer, just so we can make sure that your voice is projected, just make sure that your voice is projecting.
Absolutely. Can you all see the whole diagram now? Fantastic. So
Can all of the jurors hear him? We have a microphone if it would be helpful, but if everybody can hear him, okay. Everybody's nodding, it's all good.
So on the bottom half of this diagram, this is the basement level. And towards the middle of this bottom half of the diagram, you can see the stairwell again. This is the stairwell that connected the upper level and the lower level. But now on the bottom right side of this half of the diagram, you'll see two rooms. The room to the bottom is the southeast bedroom, which I was informed was Gannon's room. And then the room above Gannon's room, that is a storage room or storage closet that I also searched for Blue Star. And then towards the left side of this diagram, you have an entertainment area in the bottom left corner. In the upper left corner, you have a bathroom, an additional bedroom, and an additional walk-in closet.
Great. And so when you responded initially to the residents on February 3rd of 2020, can you walk the jury through what your method of approach when you approach a scene is?
Absolutely. When we respond to a scene in any capacity, we will always go at it in the least intrusive measures. That means I will work outside to inside. So in this case, I was tasked with searching for bloodstains within the garage, between the garage and his bedroom. Because I don't want to go to the most intrusive method, I'm not going to go straight to his bedroom. I'm going to start in the garage and work my way down. And that's the same with any crime scene. We'll always start outside and get closer to what is of interest.
Okay. And you can take a seat. I'm going to ask you to look at a set of photos. You're under permission to approach the witness with what has been marked previously provided to the defense as People's Exhibits 443 through 450.
450.
443 through 450, Your Honor.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you.
Mr. Liewer, can you take a moment to familiarize yourself with that set of exhibits?
Absolutely.
And do you recognize People's Exhibits 443 through 450?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize them?
These are photographs that I took during my initial visit or my initial processing the morning of February 3rd.
And are they a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw during your initial processing on February 3rd of 2020?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, at this time, the people would move to admit People's Exhibits 443 through 450 and permission to publish.
No objection. Exhibits 443 through 450 will be admitted.
Mr. Liewer, whatever is going to work better for you. If you want to stand between the screen and the diagram, I'll defer to you, but I will ask you to point out various locations on People's Exhibit 442.
Absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to stand in front of the diagram so I can turn and show the best way for you, for the jury.
Now, Mr. Liewer, you've explained that you approach a scene from the outside moving inwards. And so what we see in People's Exhibit 443, what are you documenting here?
I'm documenting the front side of the residence. So I am facing south towards the garage. And what's important here is during our overall photographs, we want to document what address we're at. So along the right-hand side of this image, you can see 662 and then something covering the bottom part. But this is the overall view of the front of 6627 Mandan Drive.
People's Exhibit 444, what are you documenting here?
This is an overall photograph of the interior of the garage. I'm standing in the northeast corner, facing southwest towards the laundry room.
People's Exhibit 445.
Now I'm standing in the southeast corner of the garage. And again, I'm facing west towards the laundry room.
People's Exhibit 446.
Standing in the southwest corner of the garage, facing east. So I'm standing right in front of the stairway to the laundry room.
People's Exhibit 447.
This is right at the base of the stairs to the laundry room. And I'm showing that there's a rug there and stairs leading into the laundry room.
Now, as you're walking through this garage area, how do you know which areas of the garage to specifically focus on?
There are multiple case considerations we have to take into. For example, the question was if there were latent bloodstains between the garage and his bedroom. It's not observed in these photographs yet, but there is a woodworking shop in the garage that would have been difficult for a vehicle to be parked or anybody to be present. So what we focused on were the open areas where you could walk or park a vehicle.
And in terms of the scope that you're allowed to document and process when you're on a scene, is that dictated by anything?
Yes, we have to work within the parameters of a search warrant. If there's something that we want to collect that are outside of the search warrant, we have to apply for another search warrant to be able to collect that.
And that goes directly to my first question really should have been, are you just allowed to walk into a house and start processing?
No, we are not. We are initially first requested by a law enforcement agency, traditionally the sheriff's office or Colorado Springs Police Department. And once they receive a search warrant, we are able to enter a home for our documentation and evidence collection purposes.
And so now what we see in People's Exhibit 447 is a piece of carpet. What was important for you to do next when you observed this piece of carpet?
For the purposes of what we were doing, again, we were searching for latent bloodstains. So our next step was to start spraying the garage with Blue Star to see if we could get a chemiluminescence.
And can you explain for the jury the steps in very basic steps of even just beginning to spray Blue Star? Where do you get it?
So Blue Star is a proprietary chemical and it comes in 2 vials. We have to put these 2 vials with a certain amount of distilled water and mix that up. Once it is mixed up in a spray bottle, we will lightly spray over wherever we are trying to search for bloodstains. And we lightly spray over it because it will fluoresce, or it will chemiluminesce very quickly. And once we see the chemiluminescence, we'll try to photograph it. But what's most important is that we swab it and note it.
In terms of timing, is that important when you know that you're going to use Blue Star to when you start spraying it?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Timing, is that important when you're using Blue Star? Can you, mix the reagent and use it for 3 hours later? Is that important? Does it matter?
So there is a shelf life to Blue Star, but we are able to use it for, if we mix it when we initially get to a crime scene, we're able to continue using it throughout the duration of the crime scene, whether it be a day or not.
Okay. And People's Exhibit 448. Again, what are we seeing here?
People's Exhibit 448 is another photograph from that same location. However, now I've slightly moved up to show in relation to where the doorway is, where I was standing.
People's 449.
This is another photograph of the rug, but it's taking facing southwest now. So it's just an additional angle of the stairwell and the rug itself.
And specifically with regard to those stairs, is there a difference how these stairs appear now versus the other photos that we've seen?
Absolutely. In the previous images, the stairs were dry and kind of a lighter shade, but now you can see that they're a darker shade. That is because I had sprayed Blue Star on these stairs, resulting in them being saturated.
People's Exhibit 450. What are we looking at here?
People's Exhibit 450 is a Blue Star photograph showing the chemiluminescence of the positive reaction with Blue Star, predominantly on the rug and slightly west of the rug.
And in terms of photographing Blue Star, are there anything that you encountered when you were there on February 3rd of 2020 that morning?
When it comes to photographing Blue Star, it is difficult to photograph because you have to manually control many settings on your camera that force a certain amount of light in for a certain period of time. So we have very high powered cameras that we can adjust those settings to take photographs like this.
And would now be a good time to use your camera?
Absolutely.
Okay, we did see you walk up to the stand with the camera. Would explaining how Blue Star is photographed and using that camera be helpful for you in demonstrating that to the jury? Your Honor, permission for the witness to use his camera for demonstrative purposes only?
Defense?
No objection.
You may, go ahead.
Now, Mr. Liewer, you started to explain the fancy settings of your camera. Can you explain that to the jury?
Absolutely. So what I have here is a Nikon D500 camera. And the reason we use these, like I said before, is that we can manually adjust many settings on this camera to take photographs that you normally wouldn't be able to on your cell phone. So we're predominantly concerned with 3 settings in general. The aperture, which if you look at the front of the lens here, that's the opening in which the light will come in. That's kind of like the pupil of your eye. We're concerned with the ISO setting, which is simply saying how sensitive the camera is to light itself. So if I have a higher ISO, that means photographs will appear brighter because it's more sensitive to light. And then additionally, when I take this lens off, being very careful, you can see in here, there's this mirror. There's going to be a shutter in here. That's what opens and closes when we're trying to capture a photograph. And the reason that is important is because we have to focus on the shutter speed of our camera. And what that means is if I have a very fast shutter speed, it means it opens and closes very fast, not letting much light in. But if I have the shutter speed open for a very long time, it allows more light to come in, meaning I can take photographs in the dark that are brighter, but that can also show the chemiluminescence of Blue Star. Additionally, I didn't bring it up, but the aperture is an additional way to allow light in. But for the purposes of Blue Star, it is predominantly the shutter speed that we are concerned with.
Now, what are the ideal conditions to even do this photography in?
With Blue Star, you have to have a dark room. It doesn't have to be completely dark, but to see a reaction, it has to be mostly dark. So with that being said, we have to have our camera settings allowing us to take photographs in the dark with very minimal light.
And
I apologize, I was gonna say, but as you can see here in the bottom portion of this photo, you can see that there is some light. We have to have some light present within the scene to show what the conditions look like with the blue star chemiluminescence. Because it doesn't really tell much if we have bright blue, but nothing behind it to show what it's on.
can you walk the jury through the different areas where reaction is being observed here in People's Exhibit 450?
Absolutely. So this is at the base of the stairs leading to the laundry room in the garage. So this is along the south wall of the garage in the southwest corner.
And would you point that out on People's Exhibit 442 for the jury as well?
Like I said before, the upper half of this diagram is the main level of the residence. In the upper right-hand corner, that is the garage. You can see along the south or the bottom wall of this diagram that there are many blue dots. Each blue dot represents a blue star reaction that I had on my first visit on February 3rd. Going forward, the green dots will be my second visit and the purple dots will be my third visit. But I'm sure we'll get there.
So after you see this positive reaction in People's Exhibit 450, what is your next step?
When we have a blue star positive reaction, we have to consider the substrate that it's on or what the blue star is reacting with. So in this case, we have a rug that we could easily collect. So we just collect that easily. However, if we have blue star reactions on a wall or floor, we can't collect the wall or the floor. So we'll have to collect a sample of that blue star reaction itself.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with People's Exhibit 451, and I will show it to the defense as well.
All right.
Mr. Liewer, do you recognize People's Exhibit 451?
Could I handle it real fast?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I do recognize this.
How do you recognize it?
This is the rug that I collected from the base of those stairs. And the reason I recognize it is the label has the description of where it came from. It has my employee ID number as well as the item number. And then there are additional tape seals on the back with my initials and the date that it was sealed up. However, there are additional tape seals and markings on the rug indicating it has been examined by further lab personnel.
Aside from those differences that you pointed out, would you say that it is in the same or substantially same condition as when you last observed and collected it?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, we would move for the admission of People's Exhibit 451.
Exhibit 451 will be admitted. Go ahead.
Now, after you note the reaction in People's Exhibit 450, what do we see now in People's Exhibit 400 and, oh, sorry, whoops. Went ahead myself, Your Honor. Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with what has been marked as People's Exhibits 452 through 458.
Exhibit 452 through 458 will be admitted.
Thank you.
No, no objection to those.
I'll lay the
exhibits.
foundation, Your Honor. Mr. Liewer, would you take a moment, familiarize yourself with People's Exhibit 452 through 458?
Absolutely.
How do you recognize those exhibits?
These are additional photographs that I took during my first visit to 6627 Mandan Drive.
And generally, what area do those photos show?
Generally, this is going to be along the south wall of the garage.
And are they a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw that day?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, at this time, we now move for the admission of People's Exhibits 452 through 458.
I still have no objection.
Okay.
Thank you.
Exhibits 452 through 458 will be admitted.
Now we can show 452. All right. Mr. Liewer, can you explain to the jury what we're looking at in People's Exhibit 452?
So as you can see along the right-hand side of this image, you can see the carpet that we've alluded to before. So this is facing, or this is slightly east of that carpet, looking at the floor.
In 453, what are we seeing now?
This is a Blue Star photograph of the ground nearby the rug.
Now, is this fair to say that this is a bit brighter?
Yes.
Okay. And when you see this blue star reaction, again, what is important for you to do next?
Again, what's important most is to document it in our notes and collect a sample of it.
People's Exhibit 454. What are you documenting here?
This is a photograph of a military backpack along the south wall of the garage.
455.
This is a photograph of that bag moved, so we can search for blue star reactions underneath the bag.
456.
And this is a blue star positive reaction photograph after the bag had been removed.
457.
We've rotated slightly to the east. This is a photograph of the southeast corner of the garage, highlighting those boards and the box directly south of the boards.
And 458.
This is a positive blue star reaction on the boards and on that box that I alluded to.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with what has been marked as People's Exhibit 459.
You may, go ahead.
Mr. Liewer, do you recognize People's Exhibit 459?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
This is an envelope with swabs that I collected of the positive blue star reactions within the garage. And again, this is based on the label indicating where it came from with my employee ID number and the tape seals. And again, there are additional tape seals indicating that this has been examined by additional lab personnel.
And in terms of the various swabbings that you did in that area, area of interest for you in People's Exhibit 458, are those swabs contained in People's Exhibit 459?
Yes, they are. If there was a blue star reaction and it was swabbed, it is collected and placed in this envelope.
And again, is that envelope same or substantially same, given the differences that you've pointed out to the jury?
Other than the additional tape seals, then yes, it would be.
Your Honor, at this time would be moved for the admission of People's Exhibit 459.
Mr. Tellini,
No objection.
Exhibit 459 will be admitted. Go ahead.
Now, Mr. Liewer, there's some particular areas that you noted in People's 458, and just to be clear, the reaction includes the boards, but it also includes another object?
Yes, it does. As you can see, the multiple boards in this photograph have a blue star reaction. But if you look at the box to the top of this image, there's some blue chemiluminescence. That was swabbed, whereas the boards were collected.
And can you just clarify for the jury on People's Exhibit 442 where that reaction is taking place?
Absolutely. As we can see on the top right-hand portion of the main level in the diagram, we have 3 dots on the southeast corner of the garage. That's going to include the box as well as the boards in the photograph that you see here.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with what has been marked as People's Exhibits 460 through 476.
You may.
Thank you.
For that set of exhibits, Mr. Liewer, do you recognize those?
Let me take a look.
So much. I appreciate you.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness. These are slippery.
Sorry?
Permission to approach the witness. The pictures are.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
All right, do you generally recognize People's Exhibits 460 through, I believe, 477?
Yes, I do. These are additional photographs that I took during my first scene processing.
And Your Honor, sorry, just to clarify, 460 through 476 is actually the number of exhibits there.
Right, go ahead.
Are they fair and accurate?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, at this time, we would move for the admission of People's Exhibits 460 through 476.
Mr. Tellini? No objection. Exhibits 460 through 476 will be admitted.
Now, Mr. Liewer, behind you is People's Exhibit 460. You'd mentioned some presumptive positive reactions that you noticed with the boards. What are you documenting in People's Exhibit 460?
What I'm documenting here is that there was initially an additional black bag right in the center of the photograph to the right or the east of the last board. And I moved that bag, and that's what I'm photographing in this depiction right here.
In 461, what are we seeing here?
This is a blue star positive reaction photograph slightly east of those boards and on the boards as well.
462.
This is a photograph directly of the boards at their south end.
463.
Again, a blue star positive reaction photograph. It's difficult to see, but it's on the farthest bottom board or the farthest east board in this photograph.
And Mr. Leeward, would you use the pointer just to point that out to the jury?
So using the pointer, it's going to be slightly in the middle of this image, but it's going to be the board that we are going to refer to as, I believe, 4. And it's this blue chemiluminescence towards the center on the screen right here.
People's 464.
This is another photograph of the boards, but as you can see towards the bottom of the image now, I've labeled the boards. I've labeled north, and I've given them arbitrary numbers as 1 through 4.
And would you point that out to the jury as well?
Absolutely. So I previously testified that that board was number 4. It was actually number 1. I apologize for that. But here on the bottom side of this image, you can see towards the center of these boards, I've labeled them 1, 2, 3, and 4. I've indicated a north arrow, and I've written top, indicating that that is the top of the board.
465.
This is a close-up image of that information.
466.
This is after I cut the boards. We decided to do this because the boards were very long. They spanned the entire length of the garage. So instead of having to contain all of the board, we cut the samples that we had presumptive positive reactions on.
And would these boards now be made available to other members of law enforcement or other people for additional access?
Yes, they would.
People's Exhibit 467, can you orient the jury as to where we're at now?
Absolutely. This is kind of a difficult photograph to discern where we are. But along the left side of this image, you can kind of see the end of a stairwell. And on the diagram here, in the bottom left side of the garage, we're in the southwest corner, looking directly in that corner. So where the rug initially was, it'll be slightly west of that.
People's 468.
This is a blue star reaction underneath the items within that southwest corner.
469.
We've moved some of those items to better visualize what was under those items.
470.
An additional blue star reaction photograph of that same area.
Now, you did explain that you like to work outside in, and so as you've documented various areas around the garage, what is the next area of focus for you?
Naturally, our next indication would be to move into the garage. So what we did after we blue star this area was move further into the laundry room.
So in People's Exhibit 471, what are you documenting here?
This is a photograph of the door to the laundry room, but we're within the garage. We have not crossed that threshold yet.
And People's Exhibit 472.
This is a blue star positive reaction photograph, and it's kind of difficult to see, but at the top of this image, towards the middle of the screen, there's a blue marking on the door.
People's Exhibit 473.
This is a photograph once we've opened up the doorway to the laundry room.
People's Exhibit 474.
This is a photograph of Blue Star positive reactions on the floor of the laundry room. Again, it may be a little bit difficult to see, but it's right on the floor, right as you cross the threshold, and it's towards the center of the image.
People's 475.
Now we're standing within the laundry room, facing the doorway and looking at the ground towards what would be the entrance of the home.
People's 476.
Additional Blue Star reactions along that floor between the doors of the home and the laundry room.
And Mr. Liewer, would you go ahead and point out those different spots for the jury?
Absolutely. So we can see the washer and dryer along the left side of the screen. And we can also see some laundry baskets on the right hand of this image. And we're facing south now. So you can see some of these blue speckles along that walkway between the washer and dryer and the laundry baskets.
And are you also documenting that on People's Exhibit 442?
I am. So you can see we've alluded that the garage is in the upper left-hand corner. Now, as you move south, you can see the doorway. And this linear stretch that orients north-south, that is the laundry room. And you can see three blue dots indicating the positive Blue Star reactions that I viewed. However, the 3 is arbitrary. It's documenting the location. It's not the number of reactions we saw.
And People's Exhibit 400 and let's see. You can take a seat now if you'd like. Now, at some point, you'd explained that certain ideal conditions for photographing Blue Star. At what point in the day are you now coming back? Can you explain that again to the jury?
So as I mentioned before, we are there around noon, the noontime, so very bright outside. You can see that in this image depicted that there's light coming in underneath the doorway, which can be troublesome when we're trying to take very dark photographs for a Blue Star. So at this point, we decided with the amount of Blue Star reactions that were observed, that it would be beneficial to respond to the address in the evening hours to search for Blue Star. So because we could make the house darker.
And did you actually respond later in the evening hours on February 3rd of 2020?
Yes, I did. I responded around 6 p.m.
And did you respond with anybody else from your team?
CSI Robert Zaleski responded with me in a training capacity.
And Your Honor, permission to approach.
You may.
You.
Oh.
Sure. I was confused as well.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our lunch recess. If I can have everyone back in the jury room, say 1:20, we should be able to start on time at that point. Again, don't discuss the case among yourself. Don't discuss the case with anyone else, and have a good lunch. We'll see you back at 1:20. All rise for the jury, please.
Yep. And we'll continue on. Well, good afternoon now.
Everyone.
Your Honor, permission to approach to move the easel?
You may go ahead.
Mr. Liewer, we were at a good point where you've now transitioned to another part of the house. I would like to take a moment to take a step back. There are 2 exhibits, I believe, in front of you.
I just have the one.
Sorry?
I just have one photograph.
Right, one photograph. And what photograph exhibit is that previously admitted?
This is People's Exhibit 446.
I'll project that. Mr. Liewer, if you can take a moment to point out some specific items that we see in People's Exhibit 446. Next to the boards, you testified about a bag that you'd moved, done some Blue Star. on, but can you point out that bag in People's 446?
Absolutely. So as you can see in the center of the screen, you see a blue bag next to the boards that I've testified about. This bag appeared to be a softball bag or used for softball materials, but I did not open it to examine what was in there.
And can you point out that bag? To be clear, there may be maybe 2 bags in that particular photo. Can you point out each of those bags?
Absolutely. I'm going to stand up if that's okay with you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So as you can see in the center of this image here, the blue bag I was referring to earlier, there's a big E in the middle of it. But additionally, there's a box to the south end of the boards. There's also another Easton bag with what appears to be a pink softball bat as well.
Thank you. Now you'd explained that your work on February 3rd of 2020 was split basically into 2 parts. The second part was to maximize the advantage of what?
We wanted to respond again in the evening to take advantage of the darkness so we could see the blue star reactions if present.
Okay. And in terms of that, were you able to document any blue star reactions that you noticed?
Yes, we were. We were able to document it via notes and some photographs. There was a camera malfunction during my response, which I can explain in further detail.
Go ahead.
So I mentioned before the shutter of a camera is what opens and closes for a photograph to be taken. And that when we take our blue star photography, we want to make sure the shutter is open as long as we can to get as much light in. So traditionally, if you have a shutter that is open for a very long time, you're going to have a brighter and brighter photograph. With my camera, there was a shutter issue where I had my shutter open for a very long time, 30 seconds, and my pictures were coming out almost completely dark. And there was a weird noise that my camera was making. So we equated this to a shutter malfunction. So instead of trying to photograph and continually diluting the blue star reaction, we decided it would be best to make a note of it and sample it directly. Because if we kept trying to photograph the reaction, eventually that would continually dilute the sample, which would make it more difficult for a DNA sample to be pulled from it. So in a long-winded answer, we had issues with the camera shutter. So instead of trying to photograph it, we took swabs and noted it immediately. And the camera was eventually replaced that year as well. So,
Your Honor, permission to approach with what has been marked as People's Exhibits 477, 486 through 502, previously provided to the defense.
All right, go ahead.
To familiarize yourself with the exhibits that I've handed you.
absolutely.
Mr. Liewer, do you recognize those?
I do. These are photographs that I took during my second visit or the evening of February 3rd, 2020.
And in terms of the documentation that you did, you were able to actually use your camera, but as far as some of the documentation for lighting and things like that, that became problematic with the blue star, right?
That is correct. During the second visit we were there, the CSI Robert Zaleski had his camera. I did switch to that momentarily to photograph some blue star reactions, but overall my camera was having those shutter issues. So again, we predominantly decided that it would be best to note and swab.
And our People's Exhibits 477, 486 through 502, a fair and accurate representation of what you saw that day?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, at this time, we would move for the admission of People's Exhibits 477, 486 through 502.
Defense? Exhibits 477 and 486 through 502 will be admitted. Go ahead.
Great. Mr. Liewer, what we have projected here is People's Exhibit 477. Why did you document this?
This is an overall photograph of the storage room that's in the basement. And depicted on the diagram here, we have the child's bedroom in the southeast corner of the bottom half of this diagram. And that storage room just north of it, That's what I'm photographing here. And when we do our crime scene processing, we will take overalls of every room to document how it looks before we begin our processing. So this is one of those photos. In relation to where this location is at, it's in the northeast corner of this room facing east. So when you walk in, it's the wall on the farthest.
And as a part of the Metro Crime Lab, fair to say other members of the team also did crime scene work in that room as well?
That's correct.
Your Honor, if we can mute the screen so I can move forward.
Yep.
Great, thank you, Your Honor. You can go ahead and unmute it. Appreciate it, Your Honor.
Right.
Oh, lost it. Thank you. And now as you move forward throughout the house, continuing your documentation of specific areas of the house, what are we seeing in People's Exhibit 486?
This is a difficult photograph to recognize because we don't have any labels for it. Traditionally, when we see visible possible bloodstains, we will label them. But with how small what I observed here was, I didn't want to lose it. So what we're looking at here is that first landing. And when I refer to the landings, the first one, we're referring to going downstairs. So the first landing is the first one you hit when you're going down the stairs. The second one is the second landing when you're going down the stairs. So in this diagram, in the center of the top level, it's going to be this north wall of the first landing. And it's kind of, you can't see it, but there's a zoomed in photograph.
Okay. The zoomed in photograph that you're referring to, would that be People's 487?
Yes, it is. That there was a red possible biological sample on that north wall that we've thought it would be probative to take a sample of.
Okay. People's 488. Can you orient the jury as to where we are now?
So now we are in the southeast bedroom, or Gannon's bedroom. And this is the location. This is right when you're standing in the doorway. So we're standing in the doorway at the top left side of his room on this diagram, facing the southeast corner.
People's 489.
This is another photograph of that corner. However, now we're standing in the northeast corner facing southeast.
People's 490.
This is the direct east wall of that corner we were just referring to.
And based on what you're looking at here, photographing this particular wall, are there any apparent abnormalities that you're seeing when you look at this photo in terms of blood?
Overall, no, but there were observations later made, but at the time there weren't.
Okay. People's 491.
So this is another photograph of the southeast corner. It is very yellow because we will take a photograph before we do any blue star without any flash photography. So it will come out usually this yellowish hue. So this is the photograph I took before any blue star processing. And then any photographs subsequent to that will be of that blue star reaction in the same exact location.
And Mr. Liewer, are you familiar with what object generally is in that corner of that bedroom?
I was informed that there was a bed there at one point.
And by the time you'd enter that room, had that bed been removed?
Correct. I did not observe a bed in that corner. However, I did observe a bed in the southwest corner, so on the opposite side of this corner.
People's Exhibit 492. Can you explain to the jury what you've documented here?
This is the photograph from that corner. This is a blue star reaction. And this is after I did switch cameras on the second visit or the second processing. But this is a blue star reaction with blue and whitish blue chemiluminescence around that southeast corner.
And Mr. Liewer, would you be able to use the pointer to distinguish between the floor versus the wall area?
Absolutely. So with this photograph being so dark, it may be difficult to tell, but towards the bottom of the screen here, you can see kind of a white upside down V. To the upper left side of that V is the east wall of the room. To the upper right hand side of that V is the south wall. And then directly below that upside down V is the floor of that corner of the room.
And based on the color of the reaction that you see here, is there anything that you can say or opine as to the color and what that means?
So with it being a blue chemiluminescence, it is presumptive positive, is a presumptive positive reaction with blue star, indicating that it could be blood.
People's Exhibit 493. What are you looking at and documenting here?
This is another photograph of the same reaction. However, the spray has been distributed differently, so that's why there's a different appearance now. But again, this is another photograph of the presumptive positive reaction in that corner of the southeast bedroom.
Compared to People's Exhibit 492, would 493 show a greater height of the wall? Or is that just additional spray that you put to document that?
I wouldn't make any conclusions based on that alone, but because when you're spraying with Blue Star, you're spraying where you can. You may not be hitting every single possible area, possible bloodstains, but I will say the reaction does span a higher level in this photograph than the previous photograph.
People's Exhibit 494, what are you documenting here?
So once we saw the Blue Star reaction in that corner of the room and some discoloration on the carpet, we thought it would be probative to cut the carpet up to see if we could see any visible possible blood stains. And at that point, when we cut the carpet up, we saw a reddish brown stain consistent with blood stains on the underside of the carpet.
And as we had gone through the prior exhibit showing the carpet, was there any discoloration that was apparent on the top of the carpet as you documented?
Yes, it was darker and brown, but it was faint, but it was still present.
And can you point out, let's see, on People's Exhibit 495, what are you specifically showing in here?
This is a zoomed in photograph of the underside of the carpet, kind of highlighting that reddish brown that area of possible blood stains.
And given that you're seeing some possible blood stains soak through the carpet, what's the next level or layer that you're interested in?
When we're concerned about absorption, we're going to continue on to see how far down it goes. So with carpet, traditionally, there's also padding underneath. So we pull that padding up, which will then have the concrete sublayer. So we're just trying to see how far down that absorption of any biological material would go.
People's Exhibit 496, what have you documented here with regard to the padding and the concrete flooring?
So as I alluded to, we're going to keep searching further down. This is after that padding has been pulled back. So now you can see there was an amount of saturation through the carpet and the padding that resulted on the concrete subfloor.
And to be clear, the padding that we see with a large reddish spot, would that, if it laid back down, would that go directly over the corner area of that room below the socket?
Correct. Any of the reddish stains you're seeing in this photo would have been superimposed on top of each other.
So you're essentially peeling back layers of an onion, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And People's Exhibit 497, what are you documenting here?
It's the zoomed in photograph of the underside of that carpet padding, highlighting that reddish brown possible blood.
In 498?
Similarly, we're looking at that same staining on the concrete subfloor now.
499.
As we kept pulling carpet back, we observed additional areas of possible blood on the underside of the carpet. And here we're showing how far we pulled the carpet back and seeing additional possible blood stains.
People's Exhibit 500. This is a close-up photo, but what are you focusing on here?
So this is slightly rotated from the previous image, as you can tell by that cut out L. But now in the center of the screen, you can see sort of a brownish stain there as well. We thought that was consistent with possible blood stains, so we wanted to document and collect that as well.
People's Exhibit 501. I do see what you see here is now some layers of measurement that you've applied to the back of the carpet. What are we looking at here?
We're looking at that same photograph that we just observed, but this time I put a scale down showing the size and dimensions of that possible blood stain.
People's Exhibit 502.
This is a further zoomed in photograph of that same area.
Now, as you explained, noticing that you likely think that it may be blood, are you going to blue star these areas?
No, when we are using Blue Star, we will exclusively use that for latent blood stains. And the reason is if you have visible bloodstains, you can sample that and test it later. However, you do not have that opportunity with latent bloodstains because they are invisible, you can't see them. So if we were to have visible bloodstains, all we're doing is diluting it further for any subsequent DNA testing. So when we saw this, we didn't want to test it any further. We wanted to cut it out and collect it in a way that it would be preserved best as possible.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with what has been marked as People's Exhibit 503 and 504, previously inspected by the defense.
You may, go ahead.
Now, Mr. Liewer, I'm going to ask you to look at what's been marked as People's Exhibit 504 and first here,
Oh, boy.
503.
Perfect.
You recognize it?
I do. Could I look at the seals real fast? Yes, I do recognize this. This is that carpet that was directly in the southeast corner of the bedroom, and it also includes the padding. And again, I recognize this based on the label indicating where it was at, having my employee number, and then the tape seals on it having my initials. However, with it being having the package been open, there were additional analyses done by additional forensic personnel.
No, and that's specific to People's Exhibit 504. I think just below that is 503. Can you also take a moment to inspect People's Exhibit 503 as well?
Absolutely. This one was 503.
Oh, okay, 504 then. And in terms of People's Exhibit 504, you recognize it as well in the same way?
Yes, this is the carpet sample from that second area of possible blood stains we observed. I separated them out because there was enough of a delineation between the one bloodstain pattern, possible bloodstain pattern, and the second one. So this is that carpet and that padding, again, with the label and the additional tape seals that it is the same item.
And would you say that's in the substantially same condition as when you last collected it?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, we would move for the admission of People's Exhibits 503 and 504.
No objection. Exhibits 503 and 504 will be admitted. Go ahead.
Mr. Liewer, as you move forward in the room, you're continuing to document the different stains, et cetera, that you see in the room. What else, in addition to blood, were you also tasked with looking for? In terms of defects, projectiles, that sort of thing.
So when we were initially called, we were told to look for bloodstains and defects, or latent bloodstains and possible projectile defects. During that search, we didn't observe any additional or any defects at all, but we did do the searches for the latent bloodstains.
Okay. Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with what has been marked as People's Exhibits 505 through 509.
You may, go ahead.
Do you generally recognize those?
I do.
How do
These
you
are-
recognize?
Sorry.
It's okay.
These are photographs that were taken the evening of February 3rd during my scene processing.
And they include People's Exhibits 505 through 509. Are those also fair and accurate representations of what you saw that day?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, we would move for the admission of People's Exhibits 505 through 509.
Exhibits 505 through 509 will be admitted. Go ahead.
Now, Mr. Lee, we're seeing a lot of photos of carpet. How many photos would you normally take at a scene?
So during a crime scene processing, it's not abnormal to have anywhere between 500 to 1,000+ photographs. Most photographs we use are to show the conditions of the scene before, during, and after our scene processing. However, there are times where we take photographs, we'll have placards out, we'll have labels out highlighting particular items. But during a search warrant, we're documenting as we're searching.
Okay. And so what we see in People's Exhibit 505 here, what was important again for you to document closely here?
As you can see along the right hand side of this image, that's the original possible bloodstain that was under the carpet. What we're looking at here is an area on the concrete subfloor under that second possible bloodstain that we observed.
People's Exhibit 506, we see some measurements here. What are you documenting?
This is additional possible bloodstains that were on the concrete subfloor under that second pattern we observed.
And is the idea behind putting this sort of measurement indicator to give you a sense of scope, some sort of frame of reference?
Absolutely.
People's Exhibit 507.
Again, this is a photograph of that first area of possible bloodstains, but now a scale is included to show the overall dimensions of that possible stain.
And Your Honor, permission for the witness to publish People's Exhibits first 503 and then 504 to the jury by walking past the jury box.
Oh, yes, you may, go ahead.
Mr. Liewer, if you would go ahead and walk 503 past the jury slowly so that they can review it.
This is People's Exhibit 503. And you can see in my left hand is the carpet, in the middle is the carpet padding, and in the right hand is the original packaging that I placed the padding and the carpet into.
And based on the way that it's packaged, you're actually able to show the jury the other side of that carpet as well?
Correct. It's placed in this packaging for display purposes. This is not something that the lab itself would do. This is the underside of the carpet padding and the underside of the carpet itself. Now that it's flipped, in my right hand is the underside of the carpet. In the middle is the underside of the carpet padding, and in my left hand is the underside of my packaging.
Thank you, sir. And if you would do the same with People's Exhibit 504 as well.
This is People's Exhibit 504. This is that secondary carpet area that I alluded to before. In my left hand is the packaging. In the middle is the upper side of the carpet. And in my right hand is the upper side of the carpet padding.
And if you would show the jury the back side of People's Exhibit 504 as well.
Same thing now, but in the left hand is the padding, all the underside. In the middle is the carpet. In the right hand side is the packaging.
Thank you. We talked about various abnormalities that you would be interested in documenting. And so what we see in People's Exhibit 508, is there anything that's of note for you and why you photographed this?
Yes, I photographed this highlighting a chip in what looks like the windowsill. Towards the center of this image, you can see a white windowsill with kind of what appears to be missing paint. This was consistent with being in the area of where the bed originally was. So I thought if an incident did occur there, based on the blue star reaction and the amount of possible bloodstains, this may be noteworthy.
And what we see in People's Exhibit 509, would this be the close-up of that defect that you observed?
Correct. I can't determine what that came from. Again, I'm sure we all have nicks like that somewhere in our home, but I thought it would be of interest to photograph just in case.
And as you noted, there were various reactions along the wall of Gannon Stauch's bedroom. And there was a particular area of a focus that you had with regard to an outlet. Can you explain to the jury what you noted there?
Yes, so in that southeast corner where the bed originally was, there was an outlet cover along the east side of the wall, kind of towards the floor trim. With that being said, when we observed the outlet cover, there appeared to be dilute possible blood stains. So we photographed it and collected that item.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with what has been marked as People's Exhibit 510, 511, and 512.
May, go ahead.
Mr. Liewer, I handed you People's Exhibits 510 and 511. We'll take those to start. How do you recognize those?
These are photographs that I took during the second visit of the outlet cover in that southeast corner of the southeast bedroom.
And are they a fair and accurate depiction of what you observed that day?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, permission to admit People's Exhibit 510 and 511.
510, 511 will be admitted. Go ahead.
Permission to publish as well.
You may.
So here what we have projected behind you is People's Exhibit 510. Does that depict that outlet you were talking about?
Yes, it does. And as you can see, I've alluded to the upside down white V in the photo many times. This is, again, that southeast corner of that room. And along the east wall, you have that outlet covered towards the center of this image.
People's Exhibit 511 for scale. What are you noting here?
So I put a scale on there to outline the dimensions of the outlet cover. But then when you examine the outlet cover more in depth, for example, along the right-hand side of that cover, you can see very faint reddish brown staining consistent with dilute blood stains. So I'm documenting the outlet cover as well as any possible stains on that outlet cover.
And Mr. Liewer, can you point to those areas that you're noting specifically for the jury?
Absolutely. So on the bottom part of this electrical outlet, you can see some what appears to be brownish staining under that first, the bottom part of that outlet. And then additionally, you can see some, it's faint and difficult to see on this screen, but you can also see what appears to be some flow marks or very dilute marks with linear orientation.
And People's Exhibit 512 is not a photograph. Do you recognize what that is?
I do.
What is it?
This is the outlet cover, again, based on the label with my initials and my employee number. And there are additional seals on here indicating it's been examined by further forensic personnel.
And in terms of, again, the method that you use to process, would you have swabbed this? What would you have done to this particular area?
Again, I would not have swabbed this because I want to make sure the sample is unsaturated as possible. With that being said, we did blue star this corner of the room. We knew there was a reaction in that corner of the room, so I would note that there was a blue star positive reaction in the outlet cover, indicating that there is presumptive blood present. So there's no further swabbing that needed to be necessary, and it would be handed off to the DNA unit.
Now, you had mentioned dilute, some dilute blood stains there. Can you remind the jury what you mean specifically about dilute?
Yes, so obviously when you cut your finger, you have very red, thick blood that comes out. And then when you try to clean it up, like if you're in the sink, when you wash it off, it starts to appear runny and starts to become a little bit more clear. That's what I'm alluding to here, is that when I say dilute blood stains, that you have very clear, very faint reddish brown staining instead of the very obvious present red color of blood.
In terms of this, you've sprayed this area with Blue Star. Is there anything that you would have noted as it related to the Blue Star reaction in this area? Is there anything that could have told you or anything that you noticed there?
Other than the reaction being blue, indicating that it was presumptive positive for blood, there wasn't anything else that I noted outside of the reaction.
And so the volume of Blue Star that you spray, how would you describe it? Is it a fine mist? Are there large droplets? What is it?
It's a very fine mist. So it's a standard spray bottle that you receive. It's not like a Febreze spray. It's more of a you pump a few times, and if you usually will get a reaction after 2 or 3 pumps. So we try to hold off after using as much as we need to see the reaction.
And so in terms of you're noting that there's dilute bloodstain marks, what appear to be that on this outlet cover, would that have been due to the Blue Star spray creating that? Or could that have been done, for example, by something like cleaning?
It could be both. Because the Blue Star is a liquid that is water-based, there will be some dilution, but the amount you're spraying isn't going to dilute it to this level.
And based on what you're seeing with the outlet cover, you're working outside in, what are you going to do next?
I'm going to take that outlet cover off. I'm going to collect it. I'm going to see what's underneath the outlet cover.
You're under permission to approach with what's been marked and previously provided to the defense as People's Exhibits 513 through 515. $516 and $517 as well.
Go ahead.
You're under permission to approach.
You may.
Mr. Liewer, I'm handing you People's Exhibits 513, 14, 15, and 17. But before I get there, Your Honor, based on the foundation laid by the witness, people have moved for the admission of People's Exhibit 500.
Defense?
No objection.
512 will be admitted. Go ahead.
Mr. Liewer, can you take a moment to review that?
Absolutely.
Now, you explained that you collected the cover, which is People's Exhibit 512, but you also mentioned that you're going to work outside in. And so, Your Honor, if I haven't already asked, permission to publish as well, People's Exhibits 513 through 515.
You may. Go ahead.
Thank you. Oh.
Actually,
I thought
did you ask to admit those?
I thought I did without objection, but Your Honor, permission to formally admit People's Exhibits 513 through 515
Through 517.
through 517. I just thought I would take them in kind of different chunks or different items.
Mr. Tellini?
No objection.
Exhibits 513 through 517 will be admitted.
Great.
Go ahead.
Now, what we have projected behind you is People's Exhibit 513. Can you explain what you did now in terms of processing this area?
This is a photograph of the electrical outlet itself with the cover removed, highlighting what could appear to be on the outlet itself.
People's Exhibit 514.
This is a photograph from a different angle, slightly askew and up to the right of the outlet cover, because we observed dilute possible bloodstains. And this is a good example of that reddish brown color. Instead of a very strong solid red, it appears that there's a clear middle with some of that coloration on the outside. So this would be a good example of possible dilute blood.
People's Exhibit 515.
Another photograph just from a slightly different angle.
Great. And on the witness stand before you, you have People's Exhibit 516. How do you recognize what that is?
These are the swabs of those possible bloodstains on the cover, on the outlet itself, because I wasn't going to remove the cover based on possible electrical hazards, and it's easier to swab it than take it with us. But I identify it based on my employee number on here and the tape seals on the back, with additional tape seals on here indicating it's been tested.
And so, for example, do you need to open that envelope to know that those are the swabs that you collected?
No.
Okay. For those reasons, while the defense hasn't objected, Your Honor, I would ask if People's Exhibit 516 can be admitted as well.
No good. 516 will be admitted. Go ahead.
And sir, I believe you have People's Exhibit 517 as well. How do you recognize what that is?
This is a photograph of the room I took after we had removed the outlet cover and finished cutting out the carpet from that corner.
Okay. And when you exit or finish processing a room, are you also documenting that as well?
Yes, I mentioned earlier that when we are taking our photographs of our scene, it's before, during, and after processing. And we want to document how we left the area after we finish processing as well. So that's this photograph.
Great. And again, Your Honor, while not objected to by the defense, based on that, permission to admit and publish People's Exhibit 517?
Objection. 517 will be admitted. You can go ahead and publish.
Okay. And so here, this is the last documentation of the work that you did in Gannon Stauch's bedroom.
Correct.
Based on the overall observations that you observed specifically related to that corner, what was the next step in terms of processing the scene at Gannon Stauch's residence where he lived?
So now that we had observed what appeared to be a larger amount of possible blood stains, indicating that there was a potential bloodshedding event, there was going to be, it was going to come down to trying to find what could have caused that. So whether it be a blunt force instrument or a firearm or whatnot, it would have to be trying to narrow down and collecting anything that we could regarding a possible injuring item.
And where were you directed to document and search?
During my overalls, I said I photographed the entirety of the house. There was a firearm, a pistol located in the upstairs master bedroom on a chest of drawers that was of interest now because of the possible bloodshedding event.
And Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with what has been marked as People's Exhibits 478 through 483.
You may go ahead.
Thank you.
Do you recognize those?
I'll take a look real fast.
Go ahead.
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize those?
These are additional photographs that I took within the master bedroom of the room and of the handgun we observed in on the evening of February 3rd.
And are they a fair and accurate depiction of what you observed that day?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, at this time, we'd move for the admission of People's Exhibit 478 through 483.
Defense. 478 through 483 will be admitted.
Your Honor, can you mute the screen just to be safe?
Oh, yeah.
Can unmute it, Your Honor. Thank you. Mr. Liewer, can you explain what we're looking at in People's Exhibit 478?
This is a photograph of the master bedroom on the main level of that 6627 Mandan Drive. We've alluded a lot to the southeast bedroom in the basement, but referring to the diagram, you can see at the top right hand of the main level, when you walk through the laundry room, if you keep walking south, that is the master bedroom on the main level with the doorway at the northwest corner.
All right, and just for the purposes of the record, you're pointing to the diagram on People's Exhibit 442?
That is correct.
Great. Projected behind you, 479. Again, what are you moving forward in the room for?
This is another photograph of the room, but now we're standing in the northeast corner facing the southwest corner.
People's Exhibit 480.
We're facing the chest of drawers that was in the southeast corner of the bedroom. And in the center of the image, you can see a black rectangle. That is the firearm that we collected.
People's Exhibit 481. Oh, geez. 481.
This is mid-range photographs showing the firearm itself now.
And 482.
This is a close-up of the firearm before I've rendered it safe. Whenever we collect firearms on a scene, we will render it safe. We'll check the chamber for any ammunition and we'll remove the magazine, but we want to photograph it in its condition before we do any of that. So this is that photograph.
And again, did you collect this particular firearm?
Yes, we collected this firearm.
Okay. People's Exhibit 483. What are we looking at here? Where is this taken?
So now I've placed this on an envelope to show, to have a cleaner area to take the photograph. But as you can see now, the slide is locked back. There is no round or cartridge in the chamber, and there's a scale above the gun helping indicate size.
Now, you had indicated that based on what appeared to be some sort of bloodletting event that occurred in Gannon Stauch's bedroom, is this what allowed you to then seize and take this particular firearm?
Yes.
You're under permission to approach with what's been marked as People's Exhibit 484 and 485.
You may go ahead.
Yes, I recognize these.
How do you recognize those?
So the box that I was holding that contains the firearm that we collected here. I recognize that with the label and my employee number, as well as the tape seals. And then the envelope that I was holding, which is People's Exhibit 485, that is the magazine from within the firearm, containing approximately 16 cartridges.
Now, at this time, I'll direct your attention to People's Exhibit 484. What can you tell based on the markings on that box?
I can tell that it's been processed for fingerprints as well as DNA sampling, and that it appears that there have been additional exams done by the firearms unit as well as the DNA unit.
Okay. And at this time, would you use the scissors that are next to you to open that box?
Absolutely.
And to be clear, while you're doing that, when you receive a firearm and you take it into evidence, what have you done specifically with this particular firearm that we see photographed in People's Exhibit 583?
So when we collect a firearm, when I say render it safe, what that means is I will lock the slide back. That will disengage the firearm. And when that occurs, a chambered round, if there is a round within the chamber, that will also be expelled. So now there's no cartridge in the chamber that can be fired. And I will also remove the magazine, meaning that there is no ammunition in the gun and that is not able to be fired with the slide lock backed.
And when you checked the chamber of this particular firearm, was there a round in the chamber?
There was no round in the chamber.
Okay. Do you recognize, after you've opened the box, People's Exhibit 584 before you?
May I handle it to observe the serial number?
Your Honor, just to confirm, that particular item has it still been in the state that it's been rendered safe?
Yes, it is safe.
Your Honor, permission for the witness to further inspect? Sorry.
Got to put some gloves on. I'm just pointing it in a safe direction.
And Mr. Liewer, why are you taking a moment to look at the firearm more closely?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Why are you taking a moment to look at the firearm more closely? Is that to ensure that is in fact no chamber in the round, et cetera?
Correct. I'm ensuring that there is no chamber in the round, that it is a safe firearm, and that it has the same serial number as what is labeled on the label.
I guess I should say round in the chamber.
Correct. So I remember with this firearm, there is a particular grip cover that is covering the serial number. So to preserve the evidence, I'm not going to remove that cover, but it is consistent with the firearm that I observe here, especially with that grip cover being there. It's giving me a friendly reminder.
Okay. And would you say that's in substantially the same condition as when you last handled it and booked it into evidence?
I would. There is a yellow discoloration on it now, which is indicative of something we do when we fingerprint process our items of evidence. But other than that, it is in the same condition.
Your Honor, at this time, permission to admit People's Exhibit 404 at this time.
484?
484.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Defense? As long as 484.
It's 484.
484 will be admitted. Go ahead.
All right. And Your Honor, permission to publish to the jury by the witness walking past the jury box.
You may. Go ahead.
So as I'm walking by, for you guys to take a look at that discoloration I alluded to before. As you can see in the photograph, the firearm is black, but now there's this greenish, white, yellow hue on it. That is a process that we do when we fingerprint process, and that's why there's this discoloration. But again, there's also no magazine here, and there's no chambered round. I would have collected the magazine separately from the firearm.
Thank you. And now for People's Exhibit 485, how do you recognize that exhibit?
This People's Exhibit 485 is the magazine that was collected from the firearm itself.
And it's in an envelope. Do you need to open up that envelope to be sure that that's the magazine that you collected?
I do not. There are additional labels and seals from individuals within our lab, which would have it be in substantial condition as it was collected.
And Your Honor, at this time, we'd move for the admission of People's Exhibit 485.
No objection. 485 will also be admitted. Go ahead.
Thank you. And now, Mr. Liewer, you explained what you noticed about the magazine and the cartridges. Can you remind the jury what you observed with regard to how many cartridges the magazine appeared to have a capacity for and how many cartridges you observed as an approximation?
Yes. So whenever we have a magazine for a firearm, there's usually an indicator on the magazine saying how many it can be loaded with. That number may not always be true, whereas sometimes someone can force an additional cartridge in. So for the purposes of this magazine, I put an approximately 17 round capacity magazine. And on this magazine, there were window spots where you could see the cartridges. And I could count 16, but sometimes that number is deceiving because one could be hidden in there. So I put there are approximately 16 cartridges within. So in total, it's an approximately 17 round capacity magazine with approximately 16 cartridges within.
And specifically, again, that magazine was found in relation to the firearm, with the firearm?
Correct. It was within the firearm when I collected it, and I removed it and collected it separately.
And is that pursuant to the policy that you have with the Metro Crime Lab?
Yes, with our policy, we cannot put loaded firearms into evidence, so we will always remove the magazine. And additionally, when we have magazines with ammunition in them, we do not want to remove the ammunition from within because it may destroy fingerprints and any DNA evidence. So instead of pulling out the cartridges and counting them, I believed it would be most probative to preserve the fingerprints and DNA if present.
And based on how you make that item of evidence, that firearm specifically available, is it now available to other members of the Metro Crime Lab for additional processing?
Yes.
Testing?
Correct, yes.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with what has been marked as People's Exhibit 518 through 527.
You may, go ahead.
Mr. Liewer, I'll first take 518 and 519 separately. Do you recognize each of those?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize them?
People's Exhibit 518 are the swabs of the blue star presumptive positive reactions I observed in the stairwell between the main level and the basement. And then People's Exhibit 519 are the presumptive positive blue star reactions within the basement level of the residence, which would include the storage room and the southeast bedroom at the base of the stairs.
And so you saw a number of photos in the basement level of the residence, some nearby Gannon's room and nearby those stair areas. Those swabs generally taken from those areas?
That is correct, yes.
And just to be clear, can you also point out on People's Exhibit 442 for the jury where those swabs come from?
Absolutely. So I mentioned the camera malfunction before. So again, what was most important was collecting those samples and noting it. One way to diagram where those came from is to include them in my diagram here. So on the main level or the top part of the diagram here, we're focusing now on the green dots. The green dots in my diagram represent blue star reactions on my second visit or the evening of February 3rd. So as you can see here, we have one on the first stair set going downward. We have one that looks like it's outside of the stairwell. That was an error on my part. That one was within the first landing of the stairwell. I placed that incorrectly. That is my fault. We have a blue star reaction on the second landing, the second set of stairs going downward, and then on the bottom half of this diagram, now that we're in the basement level, we have one right at the base of the stairs, the floor right in front of the storage room and Gannon's bedroom, and then we have a green dot within the storage room and within the southeast corner of his bedroom. So essentially, we have blue star reactions along the stairwell and then at the storage room and his room as well.
And what would have been the path of travel if you traveled, someone were to travel from the basement area to Gannon's room? Can you point out on People's Exhibit 442 what that path of travel would have been?
Actually, the most direct path of travel between Gannon's room to go upstairs into the garage would be out his room, up the stairwell, and then directly to the garage. And as you can see here, we have blue star reactions in that general pathway.
Thank you. I've also handed you People's Exhibit 520 through 527. Those are different, right?
These are different.
Okay, what are those?
I responded to the address on February 5th for another search, and these are photographs that were taken during that search.
Okay, and are those also fair and accurate representations of what you saw on February 5th of 2020?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, at this time, we would move for the admission of People's Exhibit 518 through 527.
Done. Exhibits 518 through 527 will be admitted. Go ahead.
And Your Honor, permission to publish People's Exhibits 520 through 527.
You may go ahead.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Liewer, behind you is going to be People's Exhibit 520. Can you point out to the jury what you've documented here?
Yes, so there isn't a mid-range photograph showing what this is, but at the bottom of the screen, you can see the red washer and dryer we've mentioned before. So what we're looking at here is the top of that washer and dryer in the laundry room. And what's of interest, or what was of interest for us in this photograph, was a bottle of vinegar on top of one of those appliances.
And based on seeing, again, the bloodletting event, or at least what had occurred the remnants of something in Gannon Stauch's bedroom. What was the specific scope of what you were looking for on February 5th of 2020 now?
We wanted to document and search for any cleaning products because now that we had a bloodshedding event with dilute possible bloodstains, there was evidence that there may have been possible cleanup. So we wanted to search for any possible cleaning materials that would have been used in that action.
Okay. People's Exhibit 521, what is this a close-up of?
This is a close-up of a bottle of distilled vinegar from top of one of those appliances.
People's Exhibit 522, where are we at? Can you orient the jury now what we see and what room we're in?
Yes, now we are in the kitchen, which is on the main level of the home. And now we are looking under the sink because we wanted to pull out any cleaning supplies that would have been for carpet or upholstery, not specifically for any dishes. But this is a photograph of the under sink doors open with some products pulled out.
People's Exhibit 523, what are you close-up documenting here?
This is just a close-up photograph of the contents that have not been pulled out from under the sink.
People's Exhibit 524, what are you documenting here?
This is a zoomed-in photograph of smoke and odor eliminator, a bottle of it under the sink.
And in People's Exhibit 525, what are some other cleaning products that you notice below the cabinet?
Again, this is the other side of that sink cabinet now, where there's a box of Arm & Hammer cleaner under the sink, or baking soda, I believe.
People's Exhibit 526, is that a close-up of that box you were referring to?
Baking soda.
People's Exhibit 527, is this the overall shot of the various substances that you found under the kitchen sink in that cabinet area?
Correct. This is with some of the contents pulled out.
And you can take a seat. You've walked us through at least 3 instances that you were present to document in the residence at 6627 Mandan Drive. Those 3 dates were 2 dates with 3 instances that you searched. Or what again?
February 3rd around 11 o'clock, February 3rd around 6 p.m., and then February 5th closer to the lunch hour as well.
And while you were present on scene, was there any obvious signs of blood or a struggle that you observed on any of those times?
So when we responded on February 5th, it was much more lit in Gannon's bedroom, and we had many individuals focusing on the walls, and we observed very, very tiny non-diluted bloodstains or possible bloodstains. So we called in one of our crime scene investigators to help document those bloodstains.
And another member of the Metro Crime Lab team would have done an in-depth review of those smaller, very clear bloodstains.
Correct. They would have done a documentation of those stains, which would have allowed them to do any bloodstain pattern analysis going forward.
That's not your area of expertise, right?
That's not my area of expertise.
To be clear, the 2 times that you were present on February 2nd of 2020 and February 5th of 2020, at any point, did you see any shell casings?
I did not see any cartridge casings during any of my visits.
Aside from the gun, did you see any other items such as a knife that would have been misplaced or in another area of the house?
I did not see any knives in any odd places in the house.
Okay. In terms of documenting what you saw and observed in Gannon Stauch's bedroom or other areas of the house, such as the master bedroom, was there any obvious signs of blood-stained clothing?
No, I did not see any bloodstained clothing. I did collect a sheet with apparent blood or possible bloodstains on it from the additional bedroom in the basement. I was informed it belonged to the teenage daughters.
Ms. Gratiano, do you have a response?
Your Honor, he's just testified that he's collected it, but also in his practice as a CSI, he's relying on information from other members of law enforcement in the collection of evidence.
And without further foundation, I'll sustain the objection.
Specific to that particular item, Were you given some additional information in terms of other members of law enforcement, either a supervisor, that had evidentiary value? Potential evidentiary value?
Yes.
Okay. And in your role as a CSI, in the collection of evidence, are you relying on information and or briefings that other members are providing to you to collect evidence?
Correct. There is a level of requiring information from individuals so we can place the scene. For example, if I did not know the southeast bedroom was Gannon's bedroom, we would have started searching in other places. So when we are provided information, it's to help scope down our search, and which can also help with identifying items of evidence.
Okay. And so based on a briefing that you had received, did that particular item become of evidentiary interest in the investigation?
It did, with there being possible bloodstains on it.
Thank you. Your Honor, we'll pass the witness.
Cross-examination.
Hey, sir, how you doing?
I'm doing great today. How are you?
I'm not doing too bad. So let's go to that, what we were just talking about. That, was it a sheet or a comforter?
It was a comforter on the bed that I collected, and I collected an additional sheet from the closet of that room that had a blue star reaction.
And
So
that's
there's-
an, that's
I
an,
apologize.
oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm so sorry.
That's from, it's from the northwest bedroom.
Correct. That's the basement northwest bedroom.
And based upon everybody that was there and also based upon what was in that bedroom as far as color schemes, clothing, so forth, that appeared to be the bedroom of a teenage girl.
Correct.
You're aware that Ms. Stauch has a 17-year-old teenage girl by the name of Harley Hunt.
I did not know the name, but I knew that a teenage female resided in the home.
And there was actually there was a blood stain on that mattress, and that mattress was collected.
We did not collect the mattress, but we collected the comforter because the comforter was superimposed on the mattress. You could say that the possible bloodstains were transferred or transferred onto the mattress. So we collected the comforter in lieu of the mattress.
Okay, because it looked like there would have been, whatever that blood stain was, it would have been the same source of blood, both for the comforter and both for the mattress,
It
in
appeared-
your opinion.
It appeared consistent with that, yes.
And so you don't necessarily have to collect the mattress, you can just collect the comforter, and that will be enough to tell you whose blood that was.
Correct.
And then there was also stuffed in the laundry basket of that same teenage girl's room, a sheet.
Correct.
That sheet looked like it had blood on it.
It had a blue star reaction that we documented.
Okay, and a blue star reaction would indicate that there may be blood on that sheet.
Correct. It would indicate that there is possibly blood present on that sheet.
So in the teenage girl's bedroom on that February 5th search, you found 2 items that appear to have blood on them, correct?
Correct.
No further questions.
Be direct. Do any of the jurors have any questions for Mr. Liewer? All right, looks like we have one. All right, council approach, please. Mr. Liewer, if Blue Star is a presumptive test for blood, how is testing accomplished to separate Blue Star from an actual blood sample?
So blue star is reacting with the heme component of the blood, whereas when we have a DNA sample, they're looking for DNA within different components of the blood. So the blue star itself is not overriding the DNA because the DNA component is still present in the sample.
That may have answered this question, but I'll ask it. Does Blue Star impact or affect the actual blood sample?
What would impact the sample is how much we're spraying or diluting the sample, but blue star does not negatively affect DNA processing further on down the line.
All right, I will allow reasonable follow-up as to that question or those questions only. Prosecution?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Defense?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. You may step down.
Thank you all.